Our third building block skill for debate is line by line speaking. And this is what you do actually in a round. You don't have to be an amazing orator to be really good at debate. Instead, you've got to be able to understand the system and deliver it to the judges as they expect. We call that line by line speaking. And surprise, it incorporates both your briefs, your flowing, in a way to make yourself sound really good. Remember, besides the first case read, you don't get to practice these speeches ahead of time. You can retroactively practice them with a coach to get better if you save your flow. But you can't do it ahead of time because you don't know what your opponents are going to say. And most speeches in debate have to adapt to what has been said in the round. So we use a simple formula called line by line speaking. It has the following 5 parts to it. First, a target. Second of all, preview. Third of all, your tag. Fourth, your warrant, evidence, or argument. And fifth and finally, the impact for the debate round. To do this, you speak off of your flow. Let's look at the first part there, which is the target. Here's our flow from previous videos about Ya Ya Ding Dong, which again, if you have not looked on YouTube, you have 10 hours available for you to be able to listen to this. We have organized this across left and right. First of all, them saying Ya Ya Ding Dong is not the greatest song in the world. You then responding correctly that in fact it is for 3 distinct reasons. First of all, because it overshadowed the Eurovision winner. Second of all, it's the most popular song. And third, it's the most catchy. My opponent has done 2 arguments against the first one and only 1 argument against the third one. They have completely dropped the second argument, so we have an open space here on the flow. Now let's assume that we're going to be this red column here right now, and let's demonstrate line by line speaking. The first thing is you're going to target. Now a target tells you where you're attacking. This is especially important for the judge as they need to know where to write down your argument. A target looks at the flow, which you have up there with you speaking, and says, here's what I'm attacking. So in this instance, I would say, let's look at where my opponent said that it overshadows a Eurovision winner. I'm going to use the same terminology as my opponents did for their tag. That way, I have written down what they wrote down and likely what the judge wrote down. So I am putting a large target here. That signals to everybody in the round that go over here to the left, to the right, and you're going to see this is where I want you to write it down. That's the target. Second of all is the preview. The preview simply tells me how many attacks I have. This is why it's useful to number your arguments, because you just look at the concept of what's my highest number here. In this case, I have 2 attacks. Previewing the number of your attacks allows for the judge to figure out how much space they can allot to this. If, for instance, I had 8 attacks, they would need to start significantly higher, and they'd have to write really small to be able to fit them in. So here, I'm targeting this by saying it out loud. I'm then previewing with my highest number here. The third part of it is, what is my tag? This is the signal to the judge to write it down. I'm going to pull my tag directly off of what I wrote on the flow. Or, if I have a brief, I'm going to read the tag from the brief. Once again, synergy, all of these building blocks go together. In this case, my tag says, drunken buffoons picked it. Thus far, I do not have to do anything special in debate to sound good. And yet, I will in fact sound good doing this. For instance, to begin this speech, I'd like to refute the argument that it overshadowed the European winner. I'll refute this claim with 2 responses. My first argument is that that was decided by drunken buffoons. Note the pause here. I want to have a pause after my tag so that my opponents and judge can write down my argument. That pause needs to be clear and distinct, like a full, complete stop at a stop sign. Now, in my line-by-line speaking, I get to the hard part. This is my warrant, my evidence, or my argument. Now, if I have evidence briefed, or if I have pre-written the response on a brief, I'll have that brief up there with me or visibly on my computer screen, and I will just read it. In this instance, I'm reacting to it, and so I'm going to just look up and I'm going to explain to you my warrant, my reason for believing that this is a problem. So let's go back to the beginning here. First, I'd like to refute the argument where my opponent said it overshadowed a Eurovision winner. I'll have two responses. My first argument is that Drunken Buffoons picked it. You can't decide what is good music when you're just listening to a crowd full of drunkards. Good music is going to be decided both sober and by music professionals, not a bunch of people in a bar in Iceland. Note there, that's my reasoning and my argument. The opponent and judge are going to want to write down some of that, but I'm not exactly telling them what to write down. They're going to make their own opinion on this aspect. But that's my warrant. If I had a card of evidence here, I would read the card. So I'd start with my underlined portion and I'd read through the entire thing. Then we get to the last part. Now, if you just read an evidence, you're probably going to have to summarize it, but the tag does that as well. But the last part gets into an impact. This is telling me, why does it matter in the round? Why does winning this argument matter? What effect does it have in the debate round? Does it cause me to win the round? Does it hurt my opponent's credibility? Does it minimize the damage of their impact? Does it prove it untrue? And if so, what is the effect here? So if I go here with my warrant that it should be determined by people who are both sober and music professionals, the impact to this argument, and you are absolutely allowed to say that term, the impact to this argument is that even though it may have overshadowed a Eurovision winner, it didn't overshadow it with the key people. I've now completed an argument with line-by-line speaking. I then repeat back to another tag. So I've already targeted and previewed, but I've only done my first argument. Now I need to do my second argument. So I start at that third point, which is the tag. I then have to warrant and I have to impact. So on my flow, the tag says for my second argument that it's only one scene in a movie. I now have to warrant this. You'll note that the movie Eurovision Fire and Earth Saga includes a number of songs, most of whom get more screen time than Ya Ya Ding Dong. The concept here is that Ya Ya Ding Dong is not the main purpose of the music, nor the one that the people who created the movie want you to watch the most. Instead, it just happened to be a catchy moment. The impact to this is that it disproves their argument, that even though in that bar scene it may have overshadowed it, in the actual movie cut, the full-length song is about 3 minutes longer. So disregard my opponent's argument. When I do this, I can cover my flow very quickly and hit a lot of arguments and be able to keep and organize a debate round. So I'm going to do this whole thing pretty quickly for you. To begin my speech of defending my partner's case, I'd like to look at my opponent's argument where they say it overshadowed a Eurovision winner. I'll have two responses to this. First, Drunken Buffoons picked it. We can't determine what's good music by a bar in Iceland. Instead, you should figure out when it's sober, when you're sober, and actual music experts. By choosing to have drunken bar idiots do it, their argument is invalid because they're not in the right state of mind. But my second argument on here is it's only one scene in the movie. In fact, the Eurovision winning song that they have plays for about 3 minutes longer than Ya Ya Ding Dong, even though Ya Ya Ding Dong makes it into a number of scenes. That means that the people that produced the movie obviously thought that the Eurovision song did not overshadow it, thus invalidating their argument. But next, let's look at my opponent's third argument where they said it was catchy. I have one and only one response here, and that's that catchy does not equal good. Look at the entire career of Ricky Martin, where he sang La Vida Loca. That was one of the most catchy songs in the world, and while Ricky Martin made a nice living off of the catchiness of this song, nobody's going to say that that is classical, perfect, amazing music. And when you put things into a time capsule from the 1990s, you're going to put in a lot of different songs there. Thus, it invalidates their reasoning for thinking that it's a good song. We've proven to you that catchy doesn't necessarily mean good, so therefore they have not proven that Eurovision's Ya Ya Ding Dong, because it's catchy, is good. Thus, for all of these reasons, Ya Ya Ding Dong is not the greatest song in the world.